Hey everybody, Sean from Movie Assault here, and it's time once again for another video. This time out, it is another review that you guys helped me choose, and to pay respects to Chuck Norris, we are going to be looking at The Delta Force from 1986. That's the movie you picked me to review. Delta Force was released in 1986. It was directed by Menaham Golan, who is one of the co-owners of Cannon Film Group, who were known for producing some of the cheesiest movies of the 1980s. It was also co-written by Golan and James Bruner, who was a frequent writer of Chuck Norris vehicles. Stars, of course, Chuck Norris as Scott McCoy, Lee Marvin as Nick, Steve James as Bobby, William Wallace as Pete, and in a surprising role, Robert Forster as the bad guy Abdul. First thing I have to say is, boy, they made some really weird movies in the 80s. The Delta Force is actually based on a real event. There was a hijacking of a plane, the flight TWA Flight 847, in 1985, and it was resolved somehow. I doubt the events had anything to do or resembled in any way, shape, or form the things that happen in this movie. And I have to say up front that this is one of those action movies where you really have to turn your brain off completely to enjoy it, because if you don't, you're going to be unintentionally laughing through the entire second half of the film. And that's the interesting part of this movie, or one of the interesting things about this movie is that for 70 minutes, it's almost a serious, tense, terrorist thriller. The director, Menachem Golan, he's kind of ham-fisted, but he does make the point of who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. But he does take a lot of time to develop the characters, most of whom you don't really care about because they're not the point of the film, but the hostages, you learn their backstories, you learn a little bit about them, you begin to care about them as people, which is really strange for a 1980s action movie. The bad guys are led by Robert Forster. He plays Abdul, as I said, he's the main terrorist. Him and his partner, Mustafa, played by David Menachem. They hijack a plane going to New York City from Cairo, and it's supposed to make stops in Athens and Rome along the way. They claim to be from a terrorist organization called the New World Revolutionary Organization, and they tell the pilot, who's played by Bo Svensson, of all people, to fly to Beirut. And on their way there, they start to separate the passengers into groups. Most notably, they separate the Jewish men from the women, and because, of course, they're evil bad guys, and they hate Zionists and they hate Jews and whatnot. They also take George Kennedy, who's a priest, a Catholic priest. He sympathizes with the Jewish men and he goes along with them. Some of the Jewish men are Joey Bishop, of all people, and Martin Balsam. So they fly to Beirut. They take the Jewish guys off the plane, and then the Delta Force, who are the good guys, this crack counter-terrorist army force, they're called into action by the president. And at the beginning of the film, we learn that Scott McCoy, played by Chuck Norris, has resigned from the team after the mishandling of the rescue of the American hostages in Iran in 1980. And this movie takes place in 1985, which is when the actual hijacking took place. So anyway, they're expecting him to come back for some reason. He does, of course. They wait for him, even though he's resigned. I don't really understand the logic behind a lot of this stuff that deals with Norris's relationship with his unit. But he apparently resigned. He comes back, and he's promoted as soon as he arrives, even though he signs no paperwork to do anything. You know that Scott McCoy is a badass just by the way his fellow teammates treat him. We know this as audience members because, of course, he's Chuck Norris. So anyway, as the movie continues, we're about 70 minutes in. The terrorists move their chess pieces into position. They try to outwit their foes. They offload the Jewish prisoners in Beirut, and they start flying around and making other plans and trying to shuffle things up. The Delta Force gets onto them, and then the movie abruptly shifts gears and turns into a 60 minutes of action goofiness. It's an all-out cheese fest. As soon as the Delta Force get the go-ahead from the president to make their move on the terrorists, it's like the terrorists take some sort of sleeping pill. They get really stupid, they get really morose, they get really sleepy, and then, of course, the good guys come in and kick ass and things blow up and all sorts of stuff like that. Like I said, Cannon Films is regarded as producing some of the cheesiest and most hilarious action films of the 80s. If you want an example, a perfect example of this, the second half of this movie has every action film trope you could possibly want. It's almost like by the numbers. And the thing is, that's what people like Chuck Norris for, and they like Chuck Norris movies because exactly for that reason. So as a film, it's hard for me to take this movie seriously and say, you know what, this is a movie that is terrible, because of course it's terrible. It's a Chuck Norris movie. It's not supposed to be great. You just turn your brain off, watch it, and enjoy it. So as a quality film, I would give it a 5 out of 5. But as a Chuck Norris movie, I'd give it a 10 out of 10. He comes in, he kicks butt, he says all of about 8 lines of dialogue, and then it's over. And that's what you want from a movie like this, and it delivers in spades. So thank you for picking Delta Force as my pick of the week, and I'll have another poll up, and it'll be up right now, where you can choose the movie that I review next Sunday. So as always, thanks again for sticking with me to the end of the video. I appreciate your attention span, and also thank you for picking this movie, and rest in peace, Chuck Norris. He's probably blowing shit up somewhere in the afterlife. Bye. Take it easy.